A fisherman named Syracuse is pulling his nets through the water when he unexpectedly hauls in the body of a woman. On closer inspection, he realizes she's alive. He quickly performs mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, helping her cough up the water from her lungs. He reassures her that she's alive, though she's in disbelief, thinking she was surely dead. He wraps her in a blanket to warm her up and insists on taking her to a hospital, but she refuses, insisting she's fine. Despite his concerns, she's adamant that she can't be seen by anyone. When a nearby boat passes, she hides to avoid being spotted.
No, I don't.
Syracuse asks the woman for her name, but she replies that she doesn't know. He assumes she must have lost her memory due to an injury, possibly hitting her head. Introducing himself as Syracuse, he adds that people call him Circus, suggesting they think he's a bit of a fool. Understanding that she wants to stay hidden, Syracuse takes her to his late mother's abandoned, secluded house. He shares his lunch with her and asks if she'll be okay on her own, as he has somewhere to go. Her confident reply surprises him, but he leaves regardless. Syracuse then heads to his ex-wife's house to pick up his daughter Annie for her dialysis appointment. Annie, who is disabled, is carried by him wherever they go. He asks her if anything strange or wonderful has happened to her lately. When she asks why he always poses that question, Syracuse explains that he's always hoping for something strange or wonderful to happen. During dialysis, Annie asks Syracuse to tell her a story. He begins by telling her about a fisherman who caught a woman in his net. When Annie asks what kind of creature the woman was, he doesn't understand, so she suggests a mermaid or a selkie. Syracuse says he can't be sure. Later, Syracuse gets an automatic wheelchair for Annie to help her move around, and he brings her home. Annie's mother tells him that Annie needs a kidney transplant, but the doctor hasn't found a match yet. Syracuse goes back to the mysterious woman he caught in his net, and is surprised to find her still there. When she asks why he's surprised, he admits he thought he might have imagined the whole thing. He prepares his boat to go fishing, and the woman asks to join him. Although he mentions that having a woman on a fishing boat is considered bad luck, he changes his mind and takes her along. While they're out at sea, Syracuse struggles to catch anything. He asks the woman if she remembers her name, and she tells him to call her Undine, explaining that it's the name of a woman from the sea. She begins singing a beautiful song in a language he doesn't recognize, and suddenly, Syracuse catches some lobsters in his trap. He's surprised by this and asks Undine to sing again while he throws in another trap. When she sings, he catches even more lobsters, realizing that her singing brings him good luck. Syracuse teaches Undine how to tie the lobster's claws, and she asks if this kind of catch is normal for him. He tells her it's rare to catch so many. Afterward, he says they will go to town to sell the lobsters, and he promises Undine a share of the profits for her singing.
Okay.
She tells Syracuse that she won't go with him because she doesn't want people to see her. He points out that he's already seen her, but she responds by saying he's the only one allowed to. Syracuse sells the lobsters and uses the money to buy a dress for Undine. He also steals some women's underwear. Later, he visits Annie at school and continues the story he was telling her during dialysis. He explains that the mysterious woman from the sea sings in an unknown language, drawing all the lobsters to the fisherman's traps. Annie declares that the woman is definitely a selkie, mythical creatures that are half woman, half seal, and shed their seal skins when they come on land. She explains that the song is a way for her to communicate with other sea creatures. Annie asks who the fisherman in the story is, and Syracuse admits that it's him and that he made up the story for her. She seems doubtful and follows him as he drives away. Syracuse arrives at his mother's house and finds Undine trying on her old shoes. She doesn't seem to know how to tie the laces, which strikes him as odd. He gives her the dress he bought, and she kisses him to show her gratitude. When he asks how long she plans to stay, she says it depends on him. He replies that if it's up to him, she can stay forever. Meanwhile, Annie secretly watches everything and decides to research selkies to understand what's going on. Syracuse then goes to a church to confess. He tells the priest that he's an alcoholic and has been sober for over 2 years, but his wife still drinks. He expresses his desire to get his daughter away from her. The priest offers to help them both. Syracuse confesses to a priest but resists the suggestion to speak with a counselor. He also admits to stealing some women's underwear, which alarms the priest. Syracuse quickly clarifies that it's not what it seems and tells him about Undine. The priest asks questions, but Syracuse doesn't reveal where she's staying. The priest asks Syracuse to keep him updated on the situation. Undine tries on the underwear, but decides not to wear it for a scene where she swims. As she comes out of the water, Annie is there. Annie tells her she knew her dad didn't make up the story, and that Undine is a real Selkie. Undine realizes Annie is Syracuse's daughter. Annie asks if Undine has magical powers and if she can heal her. When Undine asks what's wrong, Annie explains she has kidney failure. Annie notices Undine is cold and points out that Selkies belong underwater. Undine denies knowing what Annie means, but Annie insists she's done her research and suggests they be honest with each other. Annie explains that Selkies can live on land for 7 years if they bury their seal skins, and during that time, they will cry 7 tears. After that, they might find unexpected happiness with a human. As Annie prepares to leave, Undine kisses her and says she looks forward to seeing her again. Annie notices her cheek is wet and points out that Undine has already cried one of the 7 tears. Meanwhile, Syracuse goes to the library to find books about Selkies, but discovers Annie has already checked them all out. Later, Syracuse offers to take Undine fishing again. She agrees, but only if he promises that he will be the only one to see her. Syracuse assures Undine that only he will see her. While they're fishing, patrol officers come aboard, intrigued by his big salmon haul. They spot Undine hiding, but after noting it's unusual rather than illegal, they leave. Undine realizes there's no need to hide anymore. Syracuse then brings Undine to town, where people are captivated by her beauty. He takes her shopping, and later, she and Annie grow closer while swimming. Undine retrieves an object from the water, which Annie thinks is her seal coat. Together, they bury it in secrecy. Annie tells Syracuse that, as a Selkie, Undine can stay on land for 7 years and grant wishes, though Undine insists she's not a Selkie. A dark-haired man arrives in town searching for Undine. To test her suspicion, Annie jumps into the water, and Undine saves her, strengthening Annie's belief. Later, Syracuse reveals to Undine that he stopped drinking after finding Annie unconscious, an event that changed his life. Annie asks where Undine is, and Syracuse says her Selkie husband took her back. Annie insists she'll return because something of hers is still here, though she won't say what. Later, Syracuse sees a concert on TV playing the song Undine sang on his boat. Realizing she's a real person, he finds her at Seal Rock, where she reveals her true name, Joanna, and her past as a Romanian drug mule. Back home, they discover Vladic and his accomplice have broken in, demanding the drugs. Joanna leads them to the lobster pot where Annie hid them. As Vladic pulls it up, Joanna pushes him and his accomplice into the water, where they drown. Police later take Joanna into custody, and Syracuse learns marriage could keep her from deportation. In the end, Syracuse and Joanna marry on a boat, with townspeople watching as he kisses his bride.
A glass with what you gathered.